Hello, my name is Alexis, and today we're going to talk about a very interesting topic that is called the impressions. We're going to talk according to what the Gnostic teachings say and what, of course, the conscious masters of the humanity teach us. We're going to talk about what the impressions are, what types of impressions we can receive so as to be healthier and happier in our lives, what we can do to transform our impressions, and many more things. First of all, we receive three types of alimentation. We could say that the first one is the ordinary food that we receive with our mouth and we digest with our stomach. The second type of food, of alimentation that we receive, is the air that contains many substances as the oxygen. We receive it with our nose, but we digest it, we could say, with our pulmons. But we have a third type of alimentation that is called the impressions. And we receive it with our mind and with our five senses. So we would say that the impressions are everything that we perceive, that we receive with our five senses, which are vision, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. But the nature has not given us an organ to digest the impressions. So here is the topic, here is the riddle, we could say, how we can digest these impressions. But little by little. Let's begin with another interesting clue, fact. As our life contains impressions, we could say our life is impressions, we would say that we can choose the impressions that we perceive. For example, let's make a comparison. Let's compare a person that lives in the city and a person that lives in the nature. These two persons perceive much different impressions. The quality of the impressions that they receive is much different. Imagine a person living in the city all the day with the traffic, with the noise, with everything, and a person in the nature with the birds, with the river, with the plants. This is much more different. So we could say that the quality of the second type of impressions is much better. So what we can do, pass much more time in the nature. Let's give a second example. Let's say that we want to read a book. There are many types of books that we can read. So we could read a newspaper, and let's suppose that we read the gossip column. For example, something that has many complaints and I don't know, something like that. This is an impression for us. But instead, we could study a book of philosophy or a book of a study of the environment, something that is useful for our mind and for our consciousness. So this is a comparison of the impression, of the quality of the impressions that we can receive, because many times we can choose that, and we have free willing to do that. Let's give a third example. Let's compare two types of dialogues. For example, two persons are fighting. They are, maybe we could say, they are talking one to the other, but they are fighting. They feel angry, and the impression that each one of the two persons receive are much different than making a calm dialogue, talking about something, I don't know, what is life, what is happiness, ask the other person how you feel today. So this is what I want to say, that it's much different, the impressions that we can receive. So this is one thing, that we can choose the impressions that we have in our lives. The second thing is that sometimes we cannot choose that. It's inevitable that we experience some events, and what we can do. For example, a person wants to go to his or her work in the morning. So there is much traffic. There is a traffic jam. So what can the person do? The person has to wait. But the mind says, and if I get late, and if my boss gets angry with me, and if he hires me, and like this is a distraction for the mind, and nothing has happened yet. So in this case, as we are waiting in between the traffic, what we can do, we have to apply a tremendous key that is called the comprehension. The comprehension transforms the impressions, helps us transform the impressions. Because, let's say, we are waiting, the light to turn green, and the mind says it's a song, it's history, we would say. At that moment, we should tell to the mind, if I get angry, or if I lose my patience, am I going to arrive earlier at work? Of course not. So it's much better to keep calm, have peace, and wait for the light to turn green. And throughout this process, we manage to transform the impressions. And this is a very simple example, but we can apply that to all aspects of life. And throughout this, we can transform our lives. Because, look, something very interesting. Our lives are the impressions that we perceive. Because if we say that our life is the events that we perceive, it's not true, because sometimes we see many people at the same event, and every person feels, thinks, acts differently. So this means that they perceive different impressions, or they transform different, with a different way, the impressions. So this is a tremendous key to apply. It's a comprehension. And something very useful that we can do as well is try to meditate. So close our eyes, concentrate, calm our mind, and try to transform the impressions of the past, because of course we have some impressions in the past that we have not digested, we could say. We have some impressions of the past that we have not transformed. So throughout this, we can transform our lives, because it's like we had some problems in the past and now we don't have them with the meditation. So a person that achieves to choose the correct impressions for their lives and transform the impressions every moment, or the impressions of the past, is much happier, is much more calm, is healthier, the body works better, has better human relationships, has success in his life or in her life. So by all means, it's much better to transform the impressions and to choose the impressions that we perceive. So this is more or less an introduction about the topic of impressions. Stay tuned, as we're going to make many more videos. I hope that this video was useful for you, and until the next time. Thank you very much.